and welcome back to Vintage Disney here on Brian's Things That Are Cool. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to go to Walt Disney World and check out some of the rides and attractions that are no longer with us. As a kid, my family went to Disney World every year, so these are attractions I have fond memories of. For most of my childhood, Disney World only had 3 parks: Epcot, Magic Kingdom, and MGM. Thus, I'll only be focusing on attractions that were at these 3 parks. Let's start our trip down memory lane in the experimental prototype community of tomorrow, Epcot. So let's get right into our first long-gone Disney attraction, World of Motion. World of Motion opened with Epcot on October 1st, 1982, and was sponsored by General Motors. The attraction took riders on the history of transportation, from the invention of the wheel up to present day, all while the catchy theme song "It's Fun to Be Free" plays. There's me at 12 years old, ready to take that journey. The grand finale had you visiting the futuristic city of Centercore, where, via a Pepper's Ghost illusion, you were placed in a futuristic vehicle. As a history buff myself, I've always been intrigued by ways to bring the past to life, and this ride surrounds you in the amazing story of a man's desire to move forward. Walt would have been proud.
All right, drop it in the hat. Drop it in the hat, mister. Come on.
My personal favorite scene involves the world's first traffic jam, a comical scene of a modern annoyance set in 1900. After stepping off the ride, you were directed to the Trans Center, a large showroom that was full of exhibits, including some really cool concept vehicles, such as the Lean Machine. After a slump in sales for GM, which resulted in them pulling their sponsorship for the ride, World of Motion closed on January 2nd, 1996 to make way for the rather subpar Test Track, a downgrade, in my opinion, from a great ride like the World of Motion. Next up, let's take a trip into the distant future with Horizons. Horizons opened 1 year after the Epcot park and was also sponsored by General Electric, at least for the first 10 years as it finished out its run without one. Horizons showed riders what the future may hold in store for them, as we're always moving forward. In that respect, you could say it sort of acts as a sequel to Carousel of Progress. At the end of the ride, it would become interactive, as we're given 3 choices of simulation where we're flown over a futuristic terrain. Like Carousel of Progress, Horizons made you excited for the innovations to come, and how could any kid not love the scene with the robots? After General Electric dropped their sponsorship on September 30th, 1993, Horizons stayed around for a few more years, until closing for good in 1999. The following year, the building was torn down to make way for Mission Space, a centrifuge motion simulator that does a number on my stomach. Man, I miss Horizons. Horizons opened our eyes to the future of technology, but starting on July 1st, 1994, we all got an up-close, hands-on look at all the cool upcoming tech with Innoventions. Opening with the park, Communicore was a pavilion dedicated to technological advances that occupied 2 semicircle buildings, Communicore East and Communicore West, and housed ever-changing exhibits. In 1994, it was rebranded as Innoventions. Here you could play the latest video games, including one where you actually got behind the wheel of a race car, marvel at the wonder of virtual reality, see the world's first smart house technologies, watch Bill Nye the Science Guy talk about inventions, yuck it up with a robot stand-up, and even ride a Segway. You could even be on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. Innoventions had a good run of 25 years, closing for good on September 7th, 2019. The East Building has since become a quick-service eatery, and the West Building was torn down to make way for a Moana attraction called Journey of Water. I couldn't find much information as to why it closed, but Innoventions was a fun place to play and learn. Keep moving forward. We've been to the past, and we've seen the future. Now it's time to think about our health here in the present. This is MetLife Wonders of Life Pavilion. The Wonders of Life Pavilion opened on October 19th, 1989. and was sponsored by MetLife for its first 12 years. And like Horizons, it finished out its run without one. The Pavilion featured numerous attractions devoted to healthcare, from the human body, medicine, to nutrition and physical fitness. Some of my favorites included Body Wars, a simulator ride directed by Leonard Nimoy and featuring Tim Matheson, where the rider is shrunk to a microscopic size to remove a splinter from a test subject. Cranium Command, a show set inside the head of a teenage boy and featuring some of the biggest names in 80s and early 90s comedy, playing parts of the body. Bobcat Goldthwait as the adrenal gland is a standout, and Charles Grodin and John Lovitz as the left and right brain are hilarious. Goofy About Health, a compilation of numerous Goofy cartoons that become a news story about Goofy's health problems and how he's able to beat them.
Returning to his castle, triumphant after a day of battle.
The Anatomical Players was a live improv sketch comedy show with all the jokes being about what else? Health.
We
are
now
going
to
answer
all
the
health
questions
you
may
have.
Why does your hair turn gray?
people
Get
gray
hair
because
they
have
children.
And Wonder Cycles, a series of stationary bikes with TVs attached that allowed you to take simulated bike rides through Disneyland and the Rose Bowl. Then there was The Making of Me. Hey, have you ever sat and wondered about the conception of Martin Short? Well, I haven't. Weirdo. But you're in luck. Disney has you covered with this short film about reproduction. All this, plus some creative hands-on attractions, made the Wonders of Life Pavilion a must every vacation. At least until 2004, when it became seasonal, which is always the kiss of death. And by January 2007, it was gone. The building was then used for various expos, including the annual Epcot International Food and Wine Festival, which I attended in 2012. Being in that building again was like exploring an ancient ruin. So many memories.
Not too much different, except all the rides are gone.
Which ride was over there?
And Body Wars was there.
Pavilion Commando was like that way.
Over there. Kind of sucks that so much of it's gone. This is where that Martin Short movie was.
Well, we've wrapped up our day at Epcot. Let's see what long-lost rides the Magic Kingdom had to offer. We'll start our day off at the Magic Kingdom with one of my favorite lost rides, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Mr. Toad opened with Magic Kingdom on October 1st, 1971. The ride followed the story of Walt Disney's adaptation of The Wind in the Willows, where Mr. Toad gets into all kinds of trouble with his new automobile. The ride had guests get into an old-time car and take a fast-paced spin around Toad Hall and the town itself, avoiding cops and weasels. The Disney World version differed from the Disneyland version in that in the Disney World version there were 2 ride loading zones, with one track including 3 more scenes than the other: a trophy room, a kitchen, and a gypsy camp. Both tracks, however, end up with you getting hit by a train and going to hell. Disney just doesn't make them like that anymore. Mr. Toad has been operating in Disneyland since 1955, but unfortunately it's been closed in Walt Disney World since September 7th, 1998, when it was replaced by The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, a downgrade I'm still not over. I mean, how could you get rid of a kid's ride where you get hit by a train and go to hell? We go from winding up in hell to flying the friendly skies of Delta. There has to be a joke in there somewhere. If You Had Wings opened in 1972 and ran to 1987. Then it became If You Could Fly, which ran from 1987 to 1989. And then finally, on June 23, 1989, Delta Dream Flight opened. Delta Dream Flight was of course sponsored by Delta Airlines, at least until 1996 when Delta dropped its sponsorship and the ride was renamed Take Flight. Much like World of Motion, Dream Flight also took you on a journey through history. In this case, the history of flight, ending with a look at all of the wonderful places that Delta could take you. I loved the sets of this ride, the attention to detail, and the mix of animatronic and projection effects. Above all, I remember this as an attraction you could always walk right on. It never had a line. Perhaps that's why it closed on January 5th, 1998. Dream Flight was replaced by Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger Spin, one of the rare times for me where the replacement tops the original. For Mickey's 60th birthday in 1988, Disney offered guests a Roger Rabbit-inspired idea of walking into a cartoon city with Mickey's Birthday Land. Mickey may have been the birthday boy, but the fun was for the whole family. Mickey's Birthday Land opened on June 18, 1988. More cartoon fun came to the land as years went on, but seeing Mickey's house was always a staple of every visit. With its oversized furniture, exaggerated home decor, I always loved checking out every detail. The tour would end with you getting to meet Mickey in a photo area behind the house. To further celebrate the big 6-0, there was a live-action stage show called Mickey's Birthday Land Show, where Minnie and the whole gang are getting ready for a surprise party for Mickey. When Mickey's Birthday Land was renamed Mickey's Starland, this show would be revamped with characters from the Disney afternoon. Birthday Land became Starland in 1990. Very briefly, in late 1995, it was known as Mickey's Toyland. Then, to celebrate Walt Disney World's 25th anniversary in 1996, it was renamed once more as Mickey's Toontown Fair, which brought a much-needed ride to the area, the surprisingly good kiddie coaster, the Barnstormer, at Goofy's Wiseacre Farm. As part of the park's Fantasyland expansion, Mickey's Toontown Fair was revamped once more with the heavily Dumbo-themed Storybook Circus, which opened on March 12, 2012. A beautiful redesign, but I'll always prefer the Toontown theming. Plus, Mickey's house was just so cool. Our last long-gone attraction for the Magic Kingdom has to be one of the stranger setups for a Disney family theme park, Extraterrestrial Alien Encounter. Extraterrestrial Alien Encounter opened on June 20th, 1995, replacing Mission to Mars. Then CEO Michael Eisner wanted a really scary ride, and even closed the attraction after a soft opening to make it more intense. In the ride, an alien corporation named XS, headed by Elsie Clench, played by Jeffrey Jones, is showing off its teleportation tube. Clench decides he wants to be teleported into the theater to address the audience. Mistakes are made, and instead of Clench being transported, the audience is confronted by a large, terrifying winged alien. Transporters, mistakes made, large aliens, Jeffrey Jones. Oh God, it's the climax of Howard the Duck. As soon as the alien is transported, it escapes. As the lights go out in the theater, we hear and feel the monster all around us, until Clench's assistants get the creature back into the teleportation tube where it explodes. We're then allowed to leave as the assistants try to find out exactly where their boss went. This was an incredibly intense attraction, and had some great effects that really made you feel like the alien was going to get you. My only gripe would be that the water sprayed on your neck to simulate monster slobber was too cold and should have been warmed up. Maybe that would have been too disgusting. The ride quickly lost popularity due to how scary it was, and certainly Jeffrey Jones' legal trouble didn't help. And it was replaced by a less intense version featuring the characters of Lilo and Stitch called Stitch's Great Escape. Alien Encounter closed on October 12, 2003. And Stitch closed on January 16, 2018. As of now, the building that housed Alien Encounter is vacant. A wild experiment that proved to be too much. To end our trip to Walt Disney World, let's spend the day celebrating the magic of movies at MGM. Here's The Great Movie Ride. The Great Movie Ride opened on May 1st, 1989. and for its first 10 years was sponsored by Coca-Cola. The ride took you on a journey through classic movies, utilizing audio animatronics, sets, and even live actors to recreate 12 different movies. Originally, it was going to be part of a movie-themed pavilion at Epcot, but all the ideas for the pavilion eventually developed into a third theme park, which became MGM. In the late 80s and early 90s, Disney was interested in purchasing Jim Henson's Muppets. When MGM was taking shape, there were a number of Muppet attractions, including Muppets 3D and a short-lived live-action Muppet show called Here Come the Muppets. With the success of the Great Movie Ride, there were also talks to build another parody attraction called the Great Muppet Movie Ride, in which Muppet characters like Kermit the Frog, Miss Piggy, Fozzie Bear, and Gonzo would reenact scenes from famous films, like having Dr. Bunsen Honeydew as Dr. Frankenstein. Unfortunately, after Jim Henson died, the deal fell through, and the Muppets' involvement in the park was scaled back. In the western scene of the Great Movie Ride, we see a Clint Eastwood animatronic, which was a last-minute replacement for Lee Marvin, whose family objected to his drunken character from Cat Ballou being chosen to represent Lee. Later in the ride, we come to the iconic final scene of Casablanca. Contrary to a little white lie the park would tell guests, this was not the plane from the original film, but it was the plane that brought Tarzan to New York in Tarzan's New York Adventure from 1942. As a James Cagney fan myself, my favorite sequence of the ride was the gangster sequence, where we're taken through a rough neighborhood and see an animatronic of Cagney, before we wind up in the middle of a gangster shootout as a live-action gangster steps out and takes control of our ride vehicle. This experience was different depending on which line you got in. The other line had a cowboy takeover. Either way, the bad guys were disposed of in the Indiana Jones section. It was a ride that introduced me to so many amazing films and allowed me to enjoy them on a whole different level. In a huge mistake by Disney, the ride closed on August 13th, 2017, making it one of the last MGM opening day attractions to go. It's been replaced by Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, but I'll never forget the Great Movie Ride or the amazing worlds it allowed me to be part of. So we've experienced Hollywood magic by riding through our favorite films on the Great Movie Ride. Let's see what goes on behind the scenes. This is the Backlot Tour and the Monster Sound Show. The Backlot Tour was another opening day attraction for MGM, and not only offered guests a chance to see props and vehicles from the movies they love, but also taught them how certain special effects are done. To this day, I'm still mad I never got picked to ride the giant bee from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I did get picked, in the attraction's final year, to be part of the battleship segment of the tour, where we all recreated the assault on Pearl Harbor, utilizing water jets and pyrotechnics. That's not me, by the way. I didn't get any footage that day. Another memorable part was Catastrophe Canyon, which combined the ride through the movies feel of the Great Movie Ride with a fun explanation of how it was all done. The best part of it all had to be the chance to see all the props, vehicles, and costumes from all my favorite movies. After the Backlot Tour, it was always fun to head over to the Monster Sound Show, where audience members were brought up to provide sound effects for a Martin Short and Chevy Chase short film. Guests are then led out into a hands-on attraction, allowing you to learn to be a Foley artist. I really liked the voiceover booths where you could re-record the dialogue to films like Who Framed Roger Rabbit or Flight of the Navigator. But a must every time was an audio adventure where, utilizing a sound booth and creative sound effects, you were the main character in a story about a movie studio executive about to meet the big cheese himself, Mickey Mouse. Monster Sound Show closed sometime before April 22nd, 1999, when it was replaced by Drew Carey's Sounds Dangerous, which just wasn't as good. The Drew Carey attraction closed on May 18th, 2012, while the Backlot Tour closed on September 27th, 2014. The building that housed the Monster Sound Show was utilized for a short time for sneak peek screenings of big releases like Maleficent and Guardians of the Galaxy before March of 2020, when it became a Mickey Mouse themed theater showing the short Vacation Fun. And the Backlot Tour was replaced by Toy Story Land. They just aren't the same though. I'll always miss the magic of filmmaking the theme park used to have. There's just something more magical about that. Right next door to the Monster Sound Show was Superstar Television. Superstar Television was a cool opening day attraction that, utilizing blue screens, put guests into their favorite shows. My sisters ended up on David Letterman, my mom was on Cheers, and I was on both Gilligan's Island and Bonanza. As time goes by, not only do we lose places that mean a lot to us, but sometimes we lose the people we love. And I think a lot of people were really affected by the death of the great Robin Williams. A lot of my childhood memories came from his shows and movies, and thinking back on past trips to Disney theme parks, it's amazing to think how much he did for them. Let's relive the good times as we journey back to Neverland. We all know about Robin playing the genie in Aladdin. Some of us may remember his remake of Disney's Absent-Minded Professor, but we may not remember his work for the theme parks. At the Magic Kingdom, Robin was the timekeeper, who took us on a trip through time in the short-lived attraction of the same name. But it was Back to Neverland that really caught my imagination as a kid. This walkthrough attraction opened with MGM in 1989, and was a mix of live action and animation that was shown as part of the Magic of Disney Animation Tour. The attraction ran from May 1st, 1989 to September 30th, 2003, and was hosted by both Robin, wearing an outfit similar to the one the genie wore at the end of Aladdin, and Walter Cronkite. The film takes us through the animation process as Robin takes on the role of one of the Lost Boys and crosses paths with the villainous Captain Hook. A couple years later, Robin would face off against the crocodile-hating pirate in another production, 1991's Hook. After a brief lesson of how animation works, we get to the final exciting scene, where animated Robin defeats Hook, before being sucked back into live action, only to jump right back into the animated world as Peter Pan offers to take him on an adventure. The rest of the tour allowed us to see real Disney animators working at their desks, while once in a while, on the overhead monitors, animated Robin peeks in to make funny quips, as only Robin could. He was one of the great ones. Rest in peace, Robin. MGM was renamed Disney's Hollywood Studios in 2008, when it ironically stopped being a working film studio. That's right, in those early days, while we were enjoying all the attractions, they were inside making films and TV shows. So I'd like to end this episode by taking a look at some of the productions made right there at Disney's MGM Studios Park. Many of the shows and movies I grew up on were filmed at MGM. The all-new Mickey Mouse Club, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Ernest Saves Christmas, Tower of Terror, animation like the Roger Rabbit shorts Trail Mix-Up and Roller Coaster Rabbit, and of course all the TGIF sitcoms that had the Family Goes to Disney World episodes. But there was one particular show shot at Disney that meant a lot to me as a kid, and that was Superboy. The entire first season was shot on Disney property, which is why you often see things like monorail tracks in the background. But one particular episode is a better time capsule than any of my home videos. Hollywood, which aired on May 13th, 1989, and had Superboy accidentally transported back to 1939 Hollywood, and of course MGM is prominent throughout. Through the years, I've been able to capture a few of the filming locations for that episode.
mentioned in that bodyguards.
I didn't see him at the studio.
Hey, I don't ever want to meet that guy again. Next time we'll use guns. We'll see how tough he is when he's hit with a bullet.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed my look back on long-lost Disney attractions. If you want to be kept up to date as to when I release a new video, go ahead, hit the subscribe button. And if you really want to be notified, hit that bell as well. And if you have any attractions that you really miss, leave them in the comments section. I'm Brian, and I'll see you next time.